I don't know if you can see those, but those are some ships out there out here in San Francisco Bay. Check them out. I'm going to talk about Matthew 6. No, Matthew 5, I take that back. Here we go. I don't know if you can see them. Let's see if I can zoom in. See the ships? There's some ships. You can see all these people kind of exercising. Kind of did a morning hike in San Francisco, man. It's just, I love this city. It's one of my favorite cities. And in fact, if you want to look at some of my photography, go to @Fibonacci. Check it out. I'm going to talk about that ship and use that as an example from Matthew 5. Check this out. You know, in Matthew 5, you know, really basically Jesus said a lot of really weird things. You know, he talked about all kinds of things, and some of them make sense and some of them don't. Like, for example, let me kind of talk about, let's look right here. For example, let's go to, what do you want to do? I mean, there's so many things. He talks about not criticizing people, not judging them. You know, and that's kind of weird because if you kind of just listen to people's conversations, you realize that criticism and judgment are basically what people talk about. That's what gossip is he talks about not serving two masters, for that we're going to hate one and love the other. And he defines what a master is by something that's trusted in. He goes, you cannot serve God and mammon, or he defines mammon as deceitful riches, money, or possessions, or whatever is trusted in. So for some people it's money, for some people it's their self-esteem, for some people it's their, you know, we all trust something. I think the human heart is just designed to trust something. So, you know, one thing I want to do in this YouTube channel is I want to kind of just bring the things that mean a lot to me, and really sometimes just the words of Jesus. And it sounds kind of funny to say that because, you know, when we talk about, you know, if somebody walked up to you and said, hey, I want to talk to you about the words of Jesus, you're like, I'm not really into that. That's kind of just not what I'm into. That's kind of weird. You know, I'm going to get back to this ship in a second, so stay with me. But let's just look at some of the words of Jesus. You know, he says, you know, that we're supposed to come to him when we are heavy laden, overburdened. He'll cause us to rest. And which I really like this. He talks about how he's gentle. You know, and that's one thing about the God that I was raised to believe in, is I never really came to know or believe or even understand the concept that God is gentle. And so today you might just want to think of God as a gentle spirit and maybe be mindful of gentleness and then how God moves with gentleness and meekness. I think a lot of times we think of God as the avenger God, you know, the Isaiah God, and he's that too. But we have to have room in our lives for a God that's multifaceted. And, you know, God's also gentle and he's meek. In fact, if you look at my Fibonacci at Twitter, you'll notice I took a picture of a seagull, a Jonathan Livingston seagull, baby! And, you know, I took it because it's not so much a good picture, but it was a picture of the seagull's footprints in the sand and, you know, the gentleness in which a bird walks, and I just like that. So I am gentle and meek. And, you know, he talks about this, and this is Matthew 10. He goes, whoever finds his lower life will lose the higher life. Again, sometimes Jesus says some really weird things, and I think what faith means is not so much that we have 100% conviction of understanding. I think faith is a willingness to say, okay, let's look into that. You know, like for example, when God says that we have to trust in him, then that doesn't mean that we have to walk around with this artificial conviction that we don't have. What it means is we just have to be willing to say, okay, well, God, show me what I do trust in. And are those things truly, truly fulfilling? For example, Matthew 10, he says, whoever finds his lower life will lose the higher life, and whoever loses his lower life on my account will find the higher life. Again, that's kind of a weird thing, you know, this higher life, lower life, and, you know, you're like, I don't even believe that stuff. That's just crazy, and like higher life, and now you're probably going to tell me that I can't criticize and judge people. Like, well, no, you can criticize and judge people all you want. I mean, this is not about telling you what you can't do. This is telling you really just me just sharing with you some of the weird things that Jesus says. So, for example, if you look at that ship, you know, there are two aspects of that ship. There's the higher part. That's the part that we could see. I mean, I could see literally, you know, there's two ships. I'm talking about that really big one right over here. I don't know if you can zoom in. Sorry, my video is not the best. But, you know, I see three masts, and there's, you know, it looks like it's striped. But what I can't see is what propels that. I mean, I can't see the propeller. There's a lot of things I can't see to that. But that doesn't mean that just because I can't see it, it doesn't exist. In fact, what I can't see is really driving that ship. Let me say that again. What I can't see is really driving it. And I think people are very similar to that. I think what we can't see about them, the invisible, the lower, if you want to call it that, that's what's really driving us. And so I think part of the faith journey or the Jesus journey, whatever you want to call it, is really just, I guess, admitting, yeah, there's a lot of things that drive me that I can't see. And then, how does that fit into Matthew 10? Let me kind of zoom out. Sorry, my kind of doing this, not the best, but hey, God's not asking me to be the professional photographer, videographer. He's saying, John, why don't you just be you? And I said, okay, I could be me. That's kind of what I'm good at. I'm good at me. He talks about, again, lower life and higher life. And so I just want to encourage you today, wherever you're at, just to kind of look at some of these weird words from Jesus. I mean, the Bible's full of weird things, In fact, let's look at this. I saw this. It says, if you forgive people, and I love how he talks about trespasses, because a lot of times we don't use the word trespass, so sorry, you trespassed against me. But, if you look at the Lord's Prayer, he just talks